Hello friends, this is Mrs. Sharp and I'm here to do Read Aloud for you. Our Read Aloud book is The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane by Kate Dicamillo. Now, many of you may have heard of Kate Dicamillo. She is also the fabulous author of The Tale of Despero, for which she won the Newbery Award. She is one of the only children's writers to win 2 Newbery Awards for the best chapter books, and she's just an amazing writer, one of my absolute favorite writers, whether it's children's writing or adult writing. She's just incredible. Some of you also may know her from, let's get that on here, the Mercy Watson series. She has also written these books. She writes very profound books for older children and children for your age, but she also writes very funny books, which you may find profound also, but hysterical books about characters such as Mercy Watson and people in her community. Now, this is from Kate Dicamillo's Facebook page. So if your parents are on Facebook, you can go on that page if they give you permission and show you how. You may go on that page and learn more about Kate Dicamillo. Kate Dicamillo puts writing prompts on her page so that wannabe writers can listen to her prompts or read her prompts and write and send them in to her. There's also a YouTube channel that I'll connect you to as well. Now, this is a picture of Edward Tulane that she has put on. It's an illustration from her book. Right here, there's Edward. He's a very fine rabbit, as you will see. And this entry is on here because an opera was actually written about this book. And it was supposed to be premiered, I believe, this week. And it had to be put off because of the virus, the same reasons that you're staying home. The singers and tech people and staging people had to stay home as well. And so the opera could not premiere. But she looked on the sunny side about it and thought, what an amazing connection, because as you will see, Edward spends a lot of time waiting in different parts of the story, as you will find out. So let's begin. The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. Now, at the beginning of the story, Mr. Dicamillo puts a quote from another work, and often authors will do this if it inspires them or if they feel like it deeply relates to the story they're writing. So it says, "The heart breaks and lives by breaking. It is necessary to go through dark and deeper dark and not to turn." From The Testing Tree by Stanley Kunitz. Chapter 1. Here's the illustration. Every chapter begins with what's almost like a puzzle piece from a larger picture. What is she holding right there? Pocket watch. Once, in a house on Egypt Street, there lived a rabbit who was made almost entirely of china. He had china arms and china legs, china paws and a china head, a china torso and a china nose. His arms and legs were jointed and joined by wire so that his china elbows and china knees could bend, giving him much freedom of movement. Now, that was very expensive to do. You'll see this story takes place quite a few years ago. And to make toys that had jointed arms and legs was much more expensive than just making them all in one piece. His ears were made of real rabbit fur, and beneath the fur there were strong, bendable wires, which allowed their ears to be arranged into poses that reflected the rabbit's mood. Jaunty, tired, full of ennui. His tail, too, was made of real rabbit fur and was fluffy and soft and well-shaped. The rabbit's name was Edward Tulane, and he was tall. He measured almost 3 feet from the tip of his ears to the tip of his feet. His eyes were painted a penetrating and intelligent blue. So if you think of American Girl dolls, about 18 inches tall, they are 18 inches tall. So how much taller is 3 feet? 3 feet is how many inches? We're doing measurement. It is 36 inches tall. So twice the height of an American Girl doll. In all, Edward Tulane felt himself to be an exceptional specimen. Only his whiskers gave him pause. And not pause as in pause, but pause as in, homophones. They were long and elegant, as they should be, but they were of uncertain origin. Edward felt quite strongly that they were not the whiskers of a rabbit. Whom the whiskers had belonged to initially, what unsavory animal, was a question that Edward could not bear to consider for too long. And so he did not. He preferred, as a rule, not to think unpleasant thoughts. Edward's mistress was a 10-year-old dark-haired girl named Abilene Tulane, who thought almost as highly of Edward as Edward thought of himself. Each morning after she dressed herself for school, Abilene dressed Edward. The China Rabbit was in possession of an extraordinary wardrobe composed of handmade silk suits, custom shoes fashioned from the finest leather and designed specifically for his rabbit feet, and a wide array of hats equipped with holes so that they could fit easily over Edward's large and expressive ears. Each pair of well-cut pants had a small pocket for Edward's gold pocket watch. Abilene wound this watch for him each morning. So you remember back at the beginning of the chapter, there's the pocket watch. "Now, Edward," she said to him after she was done winding the watch, "when the big hand is on the 12 and the little hand is on the 3, I will come home to you." So what time is that? Big hand on the 12, little hand on the 3. Try and figure it out. She placed Edward on a chair in the dining room and positioned the chair so that Edward was looking out the window and could see the path that led up to the Tulane home. Abilene balanced the watch on his left leg. She kissed the tips of his ears, and then she left, and Edward spent the day staring out at Egypt Street, listening to the tick of his watch and waiting. Remember I talked about waiting from the Facebook page? And if we flip back once again, there's that picture of him waiting by the window. Now, if you look at the rest of the illustration, you can tell what kind of home does he live in. Remember, everything he made was made especially for him, specifically for him. And he has very fine silk suits. And here we have a Persian rug on the carpet, probably Persian. I'm not sure the design. And then all this fine furniture and curtains and moldings in the home. So he lives in a very fine home, which I'm sure he likes. Although maybe it's not good enough for him. I don't know. We'll see. So, he's waiting in the chair. Of all the seasons of the year, the rabbit most preferred winter, for the sun set early then, and the dining windows became dark, and Edward could see his own reflection in the glass. And what a reflection it was! What an elegant figure he cut! Edward never ceased to be amazed at his own fineness. In the evening, Edward sat at the dining room table with the other members of the Tulane family. Abilene, her mother and father, and Abilene's grandmother, who was called Pellegrina. True, Edward's ears barely cleared the tabletop, and true also, he spent the duration of the meal staring straight ahead at nothing but the bright and blinding white of the tablecloth. But he was there, a rabbit, at the table. Abilene's parents found it charming that Abilene considered Edward real, and that she sometimes requested that a phrase or a story be repeated because Edward had not heard it. "Papa," Abilene would say, "I'm afraid Edward didn't catch that last bit." Abilene's father would then turn in the direction of Edward's ears and speak slowly, repeating what he had just said for the benefit of the china rabbit. Edward pretended, out of courtesy to Abilene, to listen, but in truth, he was not very interested in what people had to say, and also he did not care for Abilene's parents and their condescending manner towards him. All adults, in fact, condescended to him. Only Abilene's grandmother spoke to him as Abilene did, as one equal to another. Pellegrina was very old. She had a large, sharp nose and bright black eyes that shone like dark stars. It was Pellegrina who was responsible for Edward's existence. It was she who had commissioned his making, she who had ordered his silk suits and his pocket watch, his jaunty hat and his bendable ears, his fine leather shoes and jointed arms and legs, all from a master craftsman in her native France. It was Pellegrina who had given him as a gift to Abilene on her 7th birthday. So would you like to have that for your 7th birthday, something that fancy? It said she commissioned it. She commissioned Edward. So what that means is that she had him specially made. She ordered him to be specially made in a certain way. It was Pellegrina who came each night to tuck Abilene into her bed and Edward into his. "Will you tell us a story, Pellegrina?" Abilene asked her grandmother each night. "Not tonight, lady," said Pellegrina. "When?" asked Abilene. "What night?" "Soon," said Pellegrina. "Soon there will be a story." And then she turned off the light, and Edward and Abilene lay in the dark of the bedroom. "I love you, Edward," Abilene said each night after Pellegrina left. She said those words, and then she waited, almost as if she expected Edward to say something in return. Edward said nothing. He said nothing because, of course, he could not speak. He lay in his small bed next to Abilene's large one. He stared up at the ceiling and listened to the sound of her breath entering and leaving her body, knowing that soon she would be asleep. Because Edward's eyes were painted on, and he could not close them, he was always awake. Sometimes, if Abilene put him into his bed on his side instead of on his back, he could see through the cracks in the curtains and out into the dark night. On clear nights, the stars shone, and their pinprick light comforted Edward in a way that he could not quite understand. Often, he stared at the stars all night until the dark finally gave way to dawn. Let's see what happens next. Wait till tomorrow.